And now, ladies and gentlemen, Ralph Emery.
Well, hi, everybody. Here we go again from Nashville. And our guest this week is an American musical icon. He's a singer, songwriter, musician, successful actor, and appearing in, by my count, appearing in more than 89 movies. You may know him better as a composer of songs like Me and Bobby McGee, Help Me Make It Through the Night, and For the Good Times. By now you know I'm talking about one of the greatest talents to ever come out of Nashville, Kristoffer Kristofferson. Kris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ralph.
Nice to have you on the show.
Boy, I'm getting a sense of deja vu here. First time I was ever on TV was on your show back in Nashville.
In 1968, is that about right?
Lord, it might have been before that.
What could have been?
Maybe, I don't know.
Were you wearing the boots that you have on at that time?
I may have been.
I mean, I'm told that you've worn these boots forever.
I think they were, because I think I had them when I was working in the Gulf of Mexico on the flying helicopter down there.
Yes.
On the offshore oil rigs.
You know Grandpa Jones. Did you know Grandpa?
No.
Well, he had a pair of boots that went back to vaudeville days. And so in keeping with Grandpa's memory, we welcome your boots.
Grandpa Kris.
I thought of something this morning. You feel like singing?
I never feel like singing, but I'll sing for you anytime.
Well, this morning I got up early and I had your new album, Close to the Bone.
Closer to the Bone.
Closer to the Bone.
Yeah.
And I was playing it in the car, and I started laughing because I was down to the last cut. Anyway, it's not listed on the back.
Oh, they didn't want to do that.
What's the name of the song?
I Hate Your Ugly Face.
Tell me about the song.
Well, it was probably the first song I remember making up, and I'm sure I made it up when I lived in Brownsville, Texas. But I never did record it, and I think they didn't want to put that title on that album there. But my family liked it.
Well, you introduced it. You said something about I was 11 years old. Oh, you said this is the first whole song I ever wrote.
I think it is. I think I wrote it while I was raking manure in the corral.
You live on a farm or a ranch?
No, we had a couple of horses, though, right adjoining the house. And that was my job, was cleaning up the mess they made.
You feel like singing that song?
Well, I'll try.
Okay. Yeah. This is called, again,
I hate your ugly face. That gives away You've heard a lot of singers moaning of the loves they lost. They're always true to their long lost dear, no matter what the cost. I want you to hear I ain't crying in my beer. This is how it goes with me. The happiest day of my unhappy life was when you set me free. I hate your ugly face. I see it every place. It follows me wherever I try to go. Your skin is tan like leather. It looks just like a heifer's. Oh, I hate you, dear, and I think you ought to know. Now most heartbroken lovers wish their sweetheart's happiness. I just hope you're miserable, you sorry looking mess. I want you to hear I ain't crying in my beer. This is how it goes with me. The happiest day of my unhappy life was when you set me free.
All right.
Thank you. I didn't know what I was writing about.
Were you going through the period of your life when you hated girls?
Well, could have been. I think, yeah, well, especially my sister. I gave her the hardest time. But I didn't know anything about drinking beer or fooling around with girls at the time. I was just using my imagination there.
Did you listen to a lot of music on the radio?
Down in Brownsville, I listened mostly to country music and Mexican music. And
you listened to what they used to call border radio, didn't you?
yes, sir. Yeah, it was, and I loved the harmony of the Mexican songs down there. But
My wife and I were talking last night about your lineage. We all know that you come from a military family. Your father was a 2-star general in the Air Force.
yes.
How about your mother?
Well, her father was a colonel in the Army, and he had his eye put out in the Philippine insurrection by a spear. And he was a great old guy, my grandfather.
What was his name?
Roy.
Well, I wondered if your mother is where you got your music.
Well, I don't know where I got it. Neither one of them played. I think I must have got it from the radio.
You told me one time you were a big fan of Hank Williams.
Oh, yes. He was, well, still is, my hero. But that was one of the saddest days of my life when he died, and died early. But I had every record he ever made. I used to. Somebody stole them.
Did you try to sing those songs where he would go up and hit the falsetto notes?
I used to try.
Lovesick Blues.
You Lovesick Blues when in yodel.
Yeah.
I made people physically ill singing that way. I trying to yodel. I can remember once really a kid leaning out the back of this open convertible and throwing up because because of what I sounded like. So I don't yodel anymore.
I don't think I've ever heard you attempt to yodel.
Oh, and you may never, Ralph. No, I don't think it's wise.
You know how I became aware of you? It was through Sammy Smith. And I had that all-night record show at WSM. You used to come up there.
Mm-hmm.
Before I ever met you, though, Sammy came up one night, and she had a guitar, and I was finishing the show, and she said, I want to sing you some songs. And she started singing me these songs that later I was to find that you had written them. And she said that she had met you and new kid in town, written all these great songs, and forecasted great things for your future. And she turned around and proved it by singing Help Me Make It Through the Night.
Before that, you played the first song I ever had played on the radio of mine, and you loved the song and played it over and over again. It was, I think it was the Vietnam Blues
By Jack Sanders.
Yes, sir. Disc jockey. And you and you said that was the best song and played that all the time, and it made a big impression on the people that I was trying to impress at the time.
It was a song you wrote right after your discharge.
Yes, sir. I was still in the Army when I wrote it.
And you came through Washington,
D.C. Yes, sir.
And you got bumped.
Well, they were doing. They were having a protest demonstration or something, and I was still in the Army, and they were protesting being in Vietnam, which I would later agree with. But at the time, all my friends were over there fighting in Vietnam, and so I wrote this talking blues kind of thing, but I don't remember it, so please don't ask me.
Jack Sanders was a good friend of mine. He was a disc jockey,
yes.
The best disc jockey I ever heard.
Well, he had a great voice.
And he and Mary John Wilkins were good friends.
Yes.
And Mary John had tried to call me and wanted me to do that song.
Oh, wow.
And then before she could get to me, Jack did it, and I listened to Jack's record, and I thought, well, no point in me trying that. He was terrific.
Well, you never held a grudge to it because you played it all the time.
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
Oh,
it was a good
great
song. What, while we're talking about Help Me Make It Through the Night, let's talk about that song. Did you write that on the oil derrick?
Yeah, the oil rig. I used to park my helicopter on a landing pad up on top of it, and I'd go up there at night by myself with a guitar, sit in the helicopter and write. And that was where I wrote Help Me Make It Through the Night.
Based on a Frank Sinatra idea?
Yes, it was. It was, I think he said he had, he would use a girl or a bottle or whatever helped him through the night, helped him make it through the night.
And he wrote a story in Playboy, I think. And you told me that's where you got that idea.
Well, I remember reading it somewhere that he said, help me make it through the night. And I didn't give him any of the song.
What I'm going to do, we're going to take a break here. We're talking to Kristoffer Kristofferson, and Kris is a little tired because he's been riding a bus all night and played Columbus, Georgia last night, and that's a pretty good jump to Nashville on a bus. I want to go back to your moving to Nashville. You were in the Army. You had a chance to go to West Point and teach literature. You were a captain, right?
Yes, at the time.
But you, I guess you wanted to pursue your dreams, so you came down here.
Yeah, I came here, and a friend of mine, my platoon leader, was related to Mary John Wilkin, and so she said that he sent her some of my songs, and she said come by if I ever got here, and that was all I needed. I remember walking all the way to 16th Avenue South from downtown, and I just, after 2 weeks of here with all the songwriters and the people that I met, like Cowboy Jack Clement, I decided I'd get out of the Army and cause a small earthquake in my family. But
well, you had a great education, and I imagine they had other things planned for you than hillbilly music.
yeah, they thought it was a real step down or a sign of insanity or something. But
Did they ever come around?
yes, they. I know my mother at the time I got out was really thought I was worth disowning, and but I can remember seeing her hugging Johnny Cash up one time, and she had thought before that Johnny Cash was just not the greatest example. John was having a lot of troubles in those days.
But she learned to love Big John?
Yes, she did. To learn to respect him.
You gotta, let me get your job line straight. You got a job at Columbia Records as a setup man.
Mm-hmm.
Some people call it a janitor.
Yes.
And then you were a bartender at the Tally Ho Tavern.
Yes.
And then you started going down to Baton Rouge, flying helicopters.
Yes.
Out to the derricks
Oil rig, yeah.
in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes.
And then you'd come back here.
Yes. I work a week out on the platform out there in the Gulf, and then come back and have a week here trying to pitch songs.
That had to be terribly boring, sitting on a platform for a week. Do you have anything to do?
Great place to write songs.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that. I guess there was nothing else. What were you doing?
The fishing was pretty good out there, too.
Were you waiting on something that had to go back to the States?
No, I was flying the people around to the different oil rigs that are some 50 miles out in the Gulf out there.
So from rig to rig to rig?
Yes. And then I would fly back at the end of the week, back to Morgan City, Louisiana.
And then come back to Nashville?
Then I'd drive back to Nashville in my Volkswagen. And
were you in the Air Guard at that time?
no, I was briefly in the National Guard, maybe a month. But my military commitment was up, and I just couldn't keep the two things up, going down there and being in the Guard. So I got out.
One of the things that puzzled me when you took the job at Columbia Records, Bob Dylan came, did the album Blonde on Blonde.
Yes.
You watched that, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
But you were afraid to go and say hello.
Yes.
Why?
Well, nobody was messing with him at the time. He would go out and sit in the studio at the piano, and he started writing. Totally different from the way that they recorded in Nashville, where they tried to get 3 songs in 3 hours. You know, he went in there and he would write all night long at the piano, and nobody bothered him. All his musicians were playing ping pong and poker and things like that, and I was scared to death to talk to him. I talked to his wife.
Excuse me?
I talked to his wife.
Well, I read where you were afraid you would be fired.
Well, I would have been if I bothered him because we weren't supposed to bother the artist.
Okay, now that having been said, you met Johnny Cash out down at Columbia, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And
you didn't worry about getting fired?
Well, Johnny Cash I'd have got fired for. he was definitely my hero, but Jack Clement had showed John the letter that I got from my mother disowning me. I had read it in Jack Cowboy's office, and it tickled him so much he had to show it to Johnny Cash, because it had a very disparaging description of Johnny. It says he doesn't know that Johnny Cash is known primarily as being a drug addict. That's what my mother said. So the cowboy thought that was very funny.
Did Cash think it was funny?
The first thing he ever said to me was, "It's always nice to get a letter from home, isn't it, Chris?" But I definitely wouldn't have bothered him.
I thought you were pretty clever, taking a job at Columbia Records so you could meet singers, and perhaps when you weren't in the studio, you could pitch your songs.
Well, it turned out that way. I really sort of lucked into it, because Billy Swan had the job before me, and he wrote for the same place I did, and he said, asked me if I wanted that job, and I needed the income because I had a wife and kid here, and it wasn't. I think I was taking home about $60 a week, but it was enough to live on at the time.
We are going to take a break. We're talking to Kris Kristofferson. Do you feel like singing one of your hits, or some of it, a little bit?
Sure, whichever you want.
How about Me and Bobby McGee?
Okay.
We'll take a break and we'll come back.
Okay.
We'll be right back with Kris. Kris Kristofferson is here. Kris, which would be the biggest of your copyrights? Me and Bobby McGee, Help Me Make It Through the Night, For the Good Times?
Oh, boy. I think it's probably Help Me Make It Through the Night probably had more people recording it, maybe For the Good Times. But probably the biggest record was Janis's Bobby McGee.
Yeah, she had a #1 pop record.
Yeah, but unfortunately she wasn't around to hear it. By then, she died before the record ever came out. So it was a little tough for me to listen to it for a while.
Well, I saw her on YouTube singing Me and Bobby McGee.
Well, she sang it.
She must have.
In Nashville, I remember when I was down in Peru with Dennis Hopper making that movie down there, somebody sent me a newspaper from Nashville saying that she had sung it in Nashville at a concert. I think Bobby Newirth taught it to her.
Did she record it here?
No, I don't know where she recorded it.
In country music, I think Roger Miller had the first success with this.
Yes. Roger got it. Mickey Newberry and I flew with Roger back. He was here first to do the Johnny Cash show, and then he, on the day he was leaving to go back to be in some television, the Daniel Boone show, he was playing a part in there. He took Mickey Newberry and me back to California with him to show him some songs, but he never listened to any songs while we were there. He would come back from the TV and go to bed, and I got to know his son there, but I never pitched a song to him. So on the last day we're coming back to Nashville, and Mickey said, sing him Bobby McGee, and he said he'd do it. He didn't know it or anything by the time he got here, but he recorded it, and I guess it was a hit. I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was.
But Roger Miller was the hero back in those days.
Nobody like him.
Nobody like Roger. I think half the jokes in the world were made up by him.
Yeah, and there are a lot of lines in other writers' songs that came from Roger.
I wouldn't be surprised, because his mind was going all the time.
Yeah, and he'd just throw a line away, and a smart writer would write it down.
A lot of people used to do that.
Yes.
They'd hang around him in a room, where everybody was jamming, and just look to see what Roger said. He had a mind that was going a mile a minute.
Well, this song did well by him. Why don't you sing it for us? Some of it, as much as you feel like.
Well, why don't we just do about half of it?
All right.
Busted flat in Baton Rouge, waiting for the train, feeling nearly faded as my jeans. Bobby thumbed a diesel down just before it rained, took us all away to New Orleans. I pulled my harpoon out of my dirty red bandana. I was blowing sad while Bobby sang the blues. With them windshield wipers slapping time and Bobby clapping hands, we finally sang up every song that driver knew. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing but is free. Feeling good was easy, Lord, when Bobby sang the blues. Feeling good was good enough for me. Good enough for me, Bobby McGee.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoa.
There was no Bobby McGee, was there?
Not in real life.
That's what I mean.
No.
A
lot of people thought there was.
Yeah, I think we ought to mention Fred Foster.
Fred was the guy that gave me the title. That's why he's got half the song in there. Fred had in his, over at Foster's studios, downstairs was, God, names are the killer for me. The Felice and Boodle O'Brien. Boodle O'Brien had an office there, and he had a secretary named Bobby McGee. And Fred said, I got a great song title for you. It's Me and Bobby McGee. He said, the thing is, the old Bobby McGee is a she. And I'm thinking, I can't write this song. but it stuck with me. And I thought he said McGee. So when I was down there in the Gulf, I wrote it. And I hid from him for about a month until I had it done, and then it turned out great. So.
How many Bobby McGees have you met in life who said they were the person you were writing about?
Never.
Huh?
Never. I don't think I've ever met. Maybe I have, but I don't think anybody. I haven't met any Bobby McGees.
Anybody ever come up to you who said that they thought you were writing?
Me?
Yeah, they thought you were writing about them.
No, nobody had the nerve to do that.
I think you told me one time you and Willie were jogging and you ran across some hamburger joints. Were called Bobby McGee's.
That could be.
You used to run with Willie, didn't you?
Yes.
In Hawaii?
When Willie and I used to run. we don't run much anymore. But no, listen, if it has anything to do with Willie, I don't guarantee that I remember rightly. Because I could have been influenced by the atmosphere on Willie's bus.
Did you and Willie become instant friends?
Yes. Willie was my hero before I knew him, because there was a DJ over on the Armed Forces Network when I was stationed in Germany who knew Willie before the rest of the world did, and he used to play Willie Nelson songs and talk about him, and so I was a fan when I got here. And he was probably the biggest hero for the unsuccessful songwriters, the serious songwriters who hadn't made it yet. But Willie was their hero.
How did the Highwayman? How did that happen? You and Johnny Cash and Waylon and Willie.
It's really funny because I wouldn't have remembered how that happened, except that last night Chips Moman came to the show down in Columbus, and Chips Moman was the guy that first he asked if we would sing, I think it was On the Highwayman. He was recording a record with John, I believe, or Waylon or somebody, but we were all just there at the for moral support, really, and he decided to record us on this song, The Highwayman,
the Jimmy Webb song.
Jimmy Webb song, and it had already been a hit by names. Yeah, I can't do it.
Well, Glenn wanted to do it first, and then somebody else did it. I think Glenn Campbell wanted to do it.
I think it was Glenn Campbell had the hit, didn't he?
No, I don't think so.
He didn't? Well,
never mind. Let's go on with your story. How did the four of you decide to become an act?
Chips Moman cut us on that, and it went so well that he got some more songs for us to do, and the next thing you knew, we had an album, and it just developed from that. And they took the name from the first thing that we recorded, which was, I think it was Glenn Campbell had a hit on it. Maybe he didn't, but it was the only one who had recorded it before that.
And then you toured together. You became an act.
Oh yeah, some of the best years of my life. I got to stand right next to Johnny Cash and sing harmony with him if he liked it or not, which he did. I remember him stopping one time and he just started laughing, and we were in concert. And it's because I was singing harmony with him on Folsom Prison. He said nobody ever sang harmony on that. And I wasn't smart enough to realize that he didn't want me to.
How long did that act stay together?
I believe it was something like 7 years.
I know you went to Switzerland and you toured?
All over the world. All over the world. And it couldn't have been, if you think back to the days when we first met, you and I was working at Columbia, and to think that I would be standing on a stage with Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and be close friends with them would have been inconceivable at the time.
You were a tight group?
Yeah, it was a great group.
Hey, we are talking to Kris Kristofferson. We need to stop for a moment or two, but we'll be right back. Kris Kristofferson is our guest here, and from the treasure trove of great songs that he wrote, Sunday Morning Coming Down seems to be the lonesomest song you ever wrote. And yet, and it was done twice. Ray Stevens had the first record.
Yeah,
right?
He had a great record on it.
And it didn't hit.
I don't think the record company believed that was the kind of song they wanted Ray to be singing, but he did a great version of it.
You told me one time that a preacher took that record and played it in church.
I told you that?
You did.
I hope I was telling the truth.
And you said that Ray Stevens said in that record more in 3.5 minutes than he had ever said in 25 years of preaching. You don't remember that story?
No.
Well,
I know that Ray Stevens cut a great record on it. It was he had, first time I heard it, I remember walking out of the publishing house there and just sitting on the steps and crying. I was so moved by it. It was, nobody had ever wasted that much time on one of my songs. He had 35 studio hours or something, and his version of it was so good, but they wanted him to do those novelty records, the Guitarzan and those.
Yes. Well, this was your life for a while down on Record Row, wasn't it? Record Row, back in those days, was where the recording studios were. Now they're all over town. But they were in a few little blocks there on Record Row, and you lived down there.
I lived in a condemned building, which was right next to the publishing house there. I think it cost $50 a month or something, but it was pretty autobiographical when I wrote that song.
And you told me one time that you couldn't wait till Monday came, when all the offices would open again. Mm-hmm. That the weekends were lonely. Because
there was no place. They even closed the Tally Ho Tavern in the morning, and so there wasn't any place to go if you didn't have family there or something. But it came out in a good song.
It did. You want to sing a little?
Yes, I will. Well, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head that didn't hurt. The beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one bowl for dessert. Then I fumbled through my closet for my clothes, found my cleanest dirty shirt. And I washed my face and combed my hair and stumbled down the stairs to meet the day. I'd smoked my brain the night before on cigarettes and songs that I'd been picking. But I lit my first and watched a small kid cussing at a can that he was kicking. Then I crossed the empty street and caught the Sunday smell of someone frying chicken. and it took me back to something that I'd lost somehow, somewhere along the way. On the Sunday morning sidewalk, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday makes a body feel alone. There ain't nothing short of dying half as lonesome as the sound on the sleeping city sidewalks. Sunday morning coming down.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kris, you got a recent album that came out called Closer to the Bone. New songs from Kris Kristofferson. And,
some of them are new. The one was pretty old. The one that you had me sing earlier.
Oh, well, the one that you earlier, if you were not watching at the top of the show, we revived one he wrote when he was 11 years old. Anyway, I've listened to it, recommend it for you. That's what it looks like. And there's a better picture.
There's a better picture?
Huh?
I just saw my face up there on the monitor and it scared me to death.
There you are.
So who is that old man?
And you also had an album that came out, I think this came out in 2006.
I'm not sure when it did, but that was the last one I did before this one.
And this was called This Old Road.
This Old Road, yeah.
You still write?
Do I still write?
Yes.
Very slowly. I've been working on one now for about 2 months, but I'll probably be writing until they throw dirt on me, you know, but I just won't turn out as many as I used to.
If we've got time, I want you to tell me a story. Do you remember when you made the movie with Barbra Streisand, A Star Is Born? And you were sitting at the piano with Barbra Streisand, and you had to pick her up and carry her across the room.
Listen, it's amazing that I could walk across the room. I would love to pick up Barbra Streisand today and carry her across the room. But did I tell you something about that, or
yes,
what?
You did.
What did I say?
Well, you told me that you picked her up, and you.
Oh, I dropped her.
Well, you swept her across the top of the piano, and swept everything off the piano.
Yes, her feet. No, I dropped her once too by accident. I was drinking during the making of that film quite a bit. They used to put a bottle of tequila in that was a huge bottle that they never let get empty in my trailer, and I'm sure that I was a reckless carrier of Barbra Streisand. God Almighty.
She get upset with you?
Nah, she was fine. She got upset with me all the time, but she tolerated me and helped me through it. So it was a worthwhile experience. It probably did more to get me work in the movies than any other film that I did.
It was a great picture.
I think so.
You did tell me once it stopped you, it caused you to quit drinking.
Well, seeing the progress of that character was about what was going on in my life at the time, and I figured if I didn't want to break my wife's heart and my kids, that I'd better straighten up, and so it did. Not many people get to look at the future like I did at that when I drove off in that car to kill myself. So it was a life-changing experience. The whole film was.
Are you going to make a new movie this year?
I have no idea, Ralph. I think when you get over a certain age, you don't make as many movies. I haven't seen a script in a long time.
You still live in Hawaii?
Yes, sir.
I know one night I was on a plane going to Hawaii, and I ran into you. This is back around 92. Lisa is here, your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And you have how many children?
Well, I got 8 altogether, 5 with Lisa, and all the kids love each other, so it's a good time.
How many
of my
grandchildren do you have?
8.
What do they call you?
I guess granddad. I don't know. Or dad.
Do they all live in California, or are they spread out?
No, they're all over. I got Casey, my daughter, lives in North Carolina, and she's got 3 kids, and Tracy and Kris both live in California. Kris lives up in the Bay Area.
You've got a little boy named Johnny Cash Kristofferson.
Oh, no, it's Johnny, now you put me on. I can't think of Johnny's middle name.
I read that.
Yeah, it's not Cash.
That's what
It's John Robert, I believe. I think it's both for Johnny Cash and for my father-in-law.
I don't know who's writing your material for the internet, but I read that on the internet.
Oh, really?
I appreciate your coming and being with me on this show. It's been a lot of fun. I've got a lot of wonderful
memories. This takes me back.
I have a lot of wonderful memories of you, Kris.
Listen, it's your fault. You're the one that pushed me at the beginning.
I wish you well.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ralph.
you for watching, everybody. Good night.